The next member of the 2016 class is Justice Tom Colbert, a pioneer in the legal profession. Justice Tom Colbert is the first African American to serve on the Oklahoma Supreme Court. During this time, he has served as Vice Chief Justice and Chief Justice for the court. Before serving on the Supreme Court, he was also the first African American to be appointed to the Oklahoma Court of Civil Appeals, where he served as Chief Judge. He served for several years in the U.S. Army and later earned a Master of Education degree from Eastern Kentucky University. He taught in the Chicago public school system prior to attending the OU College of Law. He has served as Assistant Dean of Marquette University Law School in Milwaukee and Assistant District Attorney in Oklahoma County. He also is in the private practice of law at Miles LaGrange and Colbert. He has been recognized with so many distinctions and memberships, including the Thurgood Marshall Award of Excellence and the Oklahoma Criminal Justice Hall of Fame. We had no problem with your comments. To my great relief. The first is your colleague, Justice Joseph Watt. I first came to know of Tom Colbert when he became a judge on the Court of Civil Appeals in 2000. I became acutely aware of his intellect and his analytical skills in reviewing his opinions that would come before our court on writs of certiorari. Tom's appointment as a justice on the Oklahoma Supreme Court in 2004 was truly the highlight during my first term as Chief Justice and indeed my entire judicial career spanning 3 decades. His tenure on our court, and specifically his excellence in leadership, has only heightened my respect and admiration for Justice Colbert. His steadfast commitment to the rule of law, due process, and access to the courts by all, and not just a few, is unequaled in our time. Judge David Lewis. Tom and I met in the fall of 1983 as we began our journey together in the legal profession. Just as he was as a 1L, today Tom remains a very focused person. His passion has always been and remains today helping young people. From being a classroom teacher to being an Oklahoma Supreme Court justice, he remains committed to the development of young people. Tom was an All-American sprinter in college. Heck, until recently, he was still competing in his age category. That is my classmate, Tom Colbert. The third is Judge Jerry Goodman. I first met Tom Colbert in the appellate record of a case he had won before a jury. As I reviewed that record and read the briefs, it became apparent that this was a case that was won in the law library. He won it by first laying out all of the facts of his case as the raw fabric before the jury. By stitching in a number of cases, he created a legal theory that perfectly complemented that fabric and wove together a winning jury case using simple information and compelling explanation. Later, he was nominated by the Judicial Nominating Commission and appointed to the Court of Civil Appeals, where we became colleagues and close personal friends. From humble beginnings, he has excelled as a first-rate athlete, as a scholar, as a law school dean, as a lawyer, as a judge, as a justice, and Chief Justice of Oklahoma's Supreme Court. Choose any superlative pertaining to intelligence, judgment, character, courage, loyalty, and fortitude, and it would be inadequate to describe these characteristics of Justice Tom Colbert. Then, too, there is this. On all the occasions we lunched together in North Tulsa, at a very successful Popeye's chicken franchise of which he was the major owner, not once did he offer to buy me lunch, claiming all the time that judges should not accept free lunches. Justice Colbert, he is someone that whenever we ask anything of him at the College of Law, he shows up. We've all seen his dedication to our profession, his commitment to the courts. We've seen the seriousness with which he takes the roles he's had, to the administration of justice, to the role of the courts, and we are all awfully proud of you. Welcome to the class of 2016. He is presented by Sam Merchant, 3L. Sam was the class president for the 1L class. He was class president for his 2L class, and he is currently the Student Bar Association president. It gets more annoying. He is assistant managing editor of the Oklahoma Law Review, and his comment was selected for publication as the best comment for 2015-2016. He was a Dean's Leadership Fellow and a mentor. He is currently an extern for the Honorable Robert Bacharach for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit, and he will begin working for McAfee and Taft upon graduation. Congratulations.
Good afternoon. Good evening, I should say. This is going to be tough for me, and I'll tell you why in a few moments. I owe a lot to this university. But to President Boren, Dean Harris, to the faculty, student body, members of the bar, the judiciary, this is really an honor and privilege to be with you tonight and to be inducted into the Order of the Owl. I want to thank Justice Watt, Judge Goodman, my good friend, my classmate that's been along with me from day one, Faye Burdine, who also is a classmate of mine, and others, that this is just a precious moment, and thank you very much. And thank you all for that gracious words that you gave this evening. I want to introduce my staff who's here with me this evening, and that's David Dixon, Kate Dodu, LaShawn Turner, Ms. Christine Bird. Without them, I would not be able to make it, I'll tell you. I really owe them a debt of gratitude. Thank you very, very much this evening. You know, this afternoon we had a luncheon over at the Beacon Club. That's the first time I'd ever been to the Beacon Club. But anyway, after leaving there, I had to go back to the office and pick up some files because we've got a pretty heavy docket for Monday. And I was actually coming back down to the garage, and actually I got on the elevator, and I've been there now, I guess, we moved over there about 5 years ago, and I've never got stuck on the elevator. I get on the elevator, push 2, and it doesn't move. The door won't open. I said, oh my God, I'm gonna be up here for a while. But anyway, the door did open and I was able to get out. But as I went downstairs, I saw the Chief Justice, and he was walking, and he was looking a little tired. He told me to tell everyone this evening that congratulations to all the honorees. And I said, Chief, what's wrong? He said, well, I've been, dealing with that budget and fighting with the legislatures all day, and they're going to get to the point they're going to put us to where we don't even be able to pay the bills. I said, well, Chief, I got as Justice Carg always said, you must be going to have a speech. You got your preaching clothes on tonight. So I said, well, Chief, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go down there because we're going to be having the dean said there was going to be a maximum crowd, the largest ever in the history of the Order of the Owl. I said, well, we've got at least about 40% of the lawyers in the state of Oklahoma. I said, so here's what I'll do, Chief. With my preaching clothes on, I'm going to go down there and do a sermon. And when I do the sermon, I'm going to preach about the legislature using their power of the purse to punish us. But then when I finish, I'm going to have the justices get on every corner, and we're going to pass the plate. Now, don't say I said that to the legislature, because I'll be in trouble tomorrow, okay? But, if I was an odds maker on the Las Vegas Strip and placing the odds on me standing here tonight receiving this Covenant Award, the odds would have been 1,000,000 to 1, especially coming from my humble beginnings and coming through that long and winding road that I traveled to become a lawyer. But I must tell you, I've been very fortunate, though, along the way, and blessed to have had so many friends, neighbors, teachers, and family who positively support and encourage me throughout my life. to make this evening possible. However, the lady, though, that started all of this for me was my mother, who is with me. She's my date tonight, who will be celebrating her 91st birthday in a few months. I'm very proud of my mother and thankful for her because, she came along during the dark days of blatant discrimination, extreme poverty, poor health care. But through it all, she continued to believe in the American dream of being able to support her family, provide good health care for her children, owning her own home, and to ensure that her children, the next generation, would be able to dream even larger. In 1949, when my mother was carrying her first child, which was me, that year and living in Sapulpa, a town with only a white hospital and no black doctors, she was very fortunate, though, that she was being treated by a doctor by the name of Dr. Philip Joseph in Sapulpa. He spent his whole professional career treating the poor and disadvantaged people of all colors. Dr. Joseph told her, though, that because of the segregated laws in Sapulpa, the hospital would not admit her, and because it was her first pregnancy and her first child, he recommended that she go to the state hospital in Oklahoma City. My mother, who was determined that I receive the best health care, took the doctor's advice. And when it was time to deliver, she got on the Greyhound bus, traveled from Sapulpa, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City to the Oklahoma Memorial State Hospital. And in December of 1949, I was born right down the street from the state capitol where Ada Lois Scipio Fisher had fought long and hard against the court that I have the honor today to be serving as a justice on the Oklahoma Supreme Court. What an irony. I want to take this personal privilege to thank Dr. Philip Joseph because of his family for their contributions to civil rights and human rights. And one of Dr. Joseph's son, I don't know if he's here tonight, but he is an OU graduate, Mike Joseph, that was his father. But in 1972, and before I get to that, I know a lot of my classmates probably always have wondered. I came to Oklahoma in May of 1980. And when I came here, my wife said, "You have 2 years and a day to finish college, to law school." And so when I got here, I met David and Faye. And after getting to Oklahoma, I want to tell you, as Paul Harvey say, this is the rest of the story. I want to take this opportunity in 1972, after graduating from Kentucky State, a historical black college, I was planning on entering the University of Kentucky Law School through a joint program where the law school would admit 5 to 6 students each year from Kentucky State University, a historically black college. However, 3 days after graduation, though, Uncle Sam scratched my plans of going to law school by sending me a letter of greetings, drafting me into the United States military. But one of my good friends, though, who had an impact on my life, who had an opportunity to play in the NFL after graduating, but all of his life, he wanted to be a lawyer. And in the fall of 1973, when I was in the military, he was admitted into the University of Kentucky Law School. And after one semester, he was placed on probation. And he tried the next semester to do everything he could to get those grades up so that he could actually matriculate to graduate from law school. But during those days in the 70s, they wouldn't post your grades. They would actually send them to you at home. So he lived in Alabama, and so he went home after school, and he waited around patiently, and finally, one day, the letter came through the mail. He was there with his girlfriend, and he got the letter, and he asked his girlfriend if she would go to the store and to pick him up some items. And when she came back, he had shot himself in the head, and he would never be a lawyer. But after his death, I found out that the majority of African Americans that were admitted were dismissed from the law school and never made it past the first year. After leaving the military and finishing graduate school, we moved to Chicago, where I started teaching in the inner city. One morning, I was running along on Lakeshore Drive when I heard this announcement on the radio that the National Conference of Black Lawyers were opening up a new law school in Chicago. Its philosophy was to bring legal resources to the unrepresented communities and train legal advocates to help facilitate social change, equality, and justice in our poor and disadvantaged communities. I went to that school for 4 years. And on the 4th year, about 2 weeks before we were supposed to graduate, because we had been told when we first went to the school by the legislatures and representatives and administration of that school that it would get provisional state accreditation. Well, we got summoned and we went to the state capitol in Springfield. As I sit up there with my other classmates, we were told at that time that I would never become a lawyer because that school would never become accredited. And as I rode back home that day, it was a long ride back, and I told my wife at that time that I can't give up. I can't give up after thinking about my good friend who wanted to be a lawyer so bad, about my uncle who all of his life wanted to be a lawyer. So I picked up the phone and I called a gentleman by the name who was also taught at that law school by the name of David Hall, who actually graduated from this law school and became a professor here at one time, is now a president of a university. I told him that I wanted to go ahead and go back and start over again. And I told him that I had applied to several schools, but I would have to be out a year. He said, well, why don't you go back home? So he picked up the phone and he called Dean Swank. And with Dean Swank's help and David Hall, I'm standing here this evening. I owe a debt of gratitude to those gentlemen, and thank you very, very much. In concluding, as we sit here this evening, over 900,000 children in Oklahoma are living in poverty. Over 10,800 of those children are in foster care homes. Our young children, our communities have lost the will to dream, that no one cares about their well-being, and they don't believe they have a way out. To all the young lawyers here this evening, as well as to the prospective lawyers tonight, take a moment out of your practice to say a kind, encouraging word. You never know what those words might mean to make them turn their lives around for themselves and for their family. I want to thank this university so much for the opportunity that you've given me. May God bless you all.